linear fusion rifles. Pretty much the ideal power weapon to use on any encounter in the revamped King's Fall raid. Almost every boss features a big glowing crit spot just begging to be wailed on by a charge-up rifle. However, we are conflicted with the burden of choice. Today we're going to go over the big 4 LFR options for PvE damage dealing. Allow me to introduce our contenders. Cataclysmic from the Vow of the Disciple raid, Stormchaser from the Duality dungeon, Reed's Regret from Trials, and the Taipan-4FR from both the World Loot Pool and craftable at the Enclave.
4 will enter, but only 1 will remain.
Maybe. It's complicated. You'll see. I'm gonna give you fair warning, but also I don't want you to be freaked out. Yeah, today's video includes a fair amount of math, but as always, I will make it really easy to understand. Also, whenever I begin to bombard you with too many numbers, I'll put a picture of a puppy or a kitty up on the screen, you know, just to take the edge off. Trust me, it works. Anywho, we're gonna be looking at each of these weapons' DPS, which if you're a newbie, that's not damage per shot, that would be damage per second. Meaning, if we're in a raid or any PvE activity where we're just wailing away at some enemy, how much damage are we pumping out per second? The goal here being to do 2 things. 1, get DPS values for each weapon, both at their base and their god roll versions. And number 2, give a recommendation on which LFR people really should be chasing for PvE based on how much time they have to grind. To calculate DPS, we're going to use the good old-fashioned error method. Shout out to him. Just find out how much damage we can dish out total, measure how long it takes to bleed out the mag, and divide one number by the other number. Starting off with Cataclysmic, aka the Vow of the Disciple LFR. 533 charge time by default with an impact value of 41. Cataclysmic can dish out 58,356 damage per headshot on Carl the Cabal. Now, in its pure base form, Cataclysmic has just a 5-shot mag, meaning that in theory, if we were to land every headshot on a Carl with unlimited health, we would be dishing out 291,780 damage. How long does it take to fully fire 5 shots with the Cataclysmic? Not too hard to find out. Just go record yourself shooting the gun at a wall as quickly as you can and measure how long it takes. For me, I'm measuring time from the second I begin charging the weapon up and stopping the timer when the 5th and final round leaves the mag. Quick note, by the way, I need to say this before we go any further. Measuring shots, while seemingly easy, human error is always going to be a thing. If there are any slight discrepancies in my estimated shot firing times today, which again, always possible, rest assured it'll probably only be off by a few frames, which shouldn't make a huge difference in the overall end result. Thank you. Anyway, where were we? All in all, the Cataclysmic takes exactly 4 seconds and 47 frames to fire out 5 shots. Do a little math, presto changeo, and bam! Our base damage per second on a 5-mag Cataclysmic is 61,042. Now, while it's nice to have a base number we can point to, we also want to ideally find each weapon's best number. Meaning, look at what the Cataclysmic can roll with. A basic bitch roll is fine to measure, but we really should be comparing the god roll potential damage output too. Checking D2 Gunsmith, Cataclysmic can roll with both 4th times the charm and bait and switch. Those are the numbers I really want to see, so let's check those out too. Slapping on enhanced battery in column 2 and paired together with 4th times the charm, a Cataclysmic can fire off 10 rounds in 1 mag before needing to manually reload. If you're unfamiliar with bait and switch, it's a great perk. Dealing damage with all of your equipped weapons in a short window of time activates bait, which then gives your weapon a 35% damage buff for 10 seconds. Huge. With bait and switch active, we can now deal 78,780 damage per shot to Carl. But remember, we can't multiply that number by 10 because you need at least 1 regular shot to proc bait and switch before getting the damage buff. So firing 10 shots at Carl, 9 of them being buffed and 1 of them being not buffed, we're able to dish out a grand total of 767,376 damage. How long does it take to perfectly fire off 10 shots? Even though you can't get that number by normally firing at a wall, I have the magic powers of video editing. By simply cutting and splicing my footage, I can measure exactly how long it takes by repeating my final shot over and over and over until it looks like we've fired the weapon 10 times. Neat trick, right? Well, through the magic of editing, turns out you can fire off 10 shots with the Cataclysmic in exactly 10 seconds and 2 frames. That brings our total damage per second to 76,508. Keep that number in your head for later, or don't, because I'll just remind you later. Now, before you say it, but Fallout, you're not adding Well of Radiance, Divinity, Font of Might, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you, I love the way you're thinking. Make number get bigger is a very fun game to play. But when we're comparing core DPS numbers, there's really no need to play the pylon game from an outside damage perspective, because yeah, every LFR we're looking at today can benefit from Radiant Well or Divinity or whatever. We want to only examine the core damage numbers, including what make these weapons unique, i.e. the God roll Cataclysmic has bait and switch, which the other LFRs can't roll, therefore yeah, we want to look at that number. Alright, let's speed things up a little bit here. Next LFR to look at is the Stormchaser. Measuring the rate of fire on this bad boy is a little bit trickier because unlike the other LFRs that we're looking at today, Stormchaser fires in a 3-shot burst. So even though the weapon has a 533 charge up time like the Cataclysmic, it actually takes Stormchaser longer to fire. Again, because you got to wait for all 3 shots to come out of the gun before charging up the next burst. I can throw up some numbers on the screen if you like, but TLDR, the base damage per second number on a regular, basic, vanilla, white bread Stormchaser came in at around 61,112. Looking at the high end, Stormchaser is capable of rolling Firing Line for extra damage and Clown Cartridge for a bigger mag. That is what I measured. 8 rounds of Clown Cartridge with Firing Line's extra damage output of plus 20%. Hardly comparable to Bait and Switch's epic 35%, but the good news about Firing Line is that you don't really need to think about it that much. Just be standing near 2 buddies and you're good to go. The DPS on that particular roll clocked in at around 72,516. With the final 2 rifles we're going to look at, things are going to get a little wacky. The reason I say that is that because the final 2 are Reed's Regret and the Taipan-4FR. They're special because they now both have the potential to drop with the origin trait Viced Stinger. That potentially throws a big wrench into our number crunch operation because Viced, especially when paired together with triple tap, allows you to go a long time without reloading. See, Viced can fully just outright reload your entire mag on RNG alone. As shown in the following clip from Matt Goes Buck, you can fire over 20 shots without potentially breaking a sweat if your LFR has both triple tap and Viced Stinger, which both Reed and Taipan can do. Keeping that in mind, let's move ahead. Reed has the same rate of fire as Cataclysmic and the same basic damage per shot, so these numbers are going to be easy to put together. Basic Reed's Regret with a simple 5-shot mag clocked in at about 61,042 DPS. And now God Roll Reed, which I went with triple tap and Firing Line for that dank extra 20% damage output. Again, even though with a regular triple tap and an enhanced mag size of 6 you can get up to 8 shots, Viced Stinger is a goddamned wild card. I went with measuring 10 shots in a row, just so I could match it up with our 10-shot mag Cataclysmic God Roll. The DPS came out to about 70,563. And the final LFR to look at, the Taipan-4FR. Like the Reed, it has the Viced Stinger origin trait, meaning you can go for a long time without reloading. Unlike the other linears we're looking at today though, Taipan has an inherently faster rate of fire. Yeah, that will mean less damage per shot, but you're pumping out more shots in less time total. Basic DPS right there clocked in at about 63,959. The God Roll Taipan IMO has triple tap and Firing Line, again with that hot extra 20% damage output. Because the God Roll Cataclysmic can hit 10 shots in a row, and I also use that bar for Reed's Regret, might as well do it here too. Taipan can easily hit 10 shots in a row thanks to Viced Stinger. With Firing Line's extra damage output, the DPS on the God Roll Taipan came out to around 70,970. So here we are, final DPS numbers all on the table. Looking at these numbers, you might think, oh, so the end-all be-all answer is just get a Cataclysmic God Roll and the rest are trash. Got it. Unfortunately, it's never that simple. There's always other factors at play, a ton of them. For example, because Reed and Taipan have the Viced Stinger origin trait, they, in theory, could have higher and better DPS numbers over a longer period of time because they can go the longest by far without needing to reload. You also got the ease of use factor. The extra 35% damage output from Bait and Switch Cataclysmic is awesome, but what if your teammate steps in front of you and blocks one of your shots just as you think you've activated the perk and already whipped out your Cataclysmic? Then you gotta swap back to your special, fire again, then back to Cataclysmic, and while that sounds very random and trivial, it would affect your overall DPS number. Another factor I gotta drive home, Font of Might. Most people I know in endgame PvE are always trying to stack Font of Might on top of their overall DPS. In fact, it really helped a lot of teams, including mine, get by the monster damage check that was the War Priest on day 1 Kingsfall. While Font of Might works on every every linear fusion rifle that we've gone over today, some weapons IMO have an easier time activating it than others. Cataclysmic needs a solar well, and if you're a Loreley Titan main with melee wellmaker, well, that'll be fairly easy. However, it's not as easy as Reed's Regret. Making a stasis elemental well during a DPS phase is literally the easiest thing in the world if you have Supreme Wellmaker. Just pop a Radiant Warlock well, which depending on the encounter, your team was probably going to do anyway, and bam, instant stasis elemental well activation without needing to kill or even find an enemy. I know I'm kind of splitting hairs out here, but hey, these things do make a difference. Final thing I should mention, ease of acquisition. While a God roll Cataclysmic is definitely really tempting, I understand that not everyone out there has that kind of grind time. For people who hardly raid at all and just want to bring their A game on the off chance that they get invited to a raid with their friends, it's way more realistic for those people to just go the route of the Taipan-4FR. I mean, really, all you have to do is go to the Enclave, do a very short quest, and bam, you got the ability to craft your own Taipan. Again, always a lot of variables, but hey, I've given you the numbers and the information. You can make your own call. I think that even though I have a God roll Cataclysmic, I'm still going to roll with a Taipan 9 times out of 10 because firing line is easier to take advantage of than bait and switch, and I'm lazy. Also, now that contest mode is over, Oryx and every other boss in Kingsfall is now a total pushover, and I don't really need the max power effectiveness of Cataclysmic. I'll still use it if I want to go try hard mode though, or if I'm using a Solar Titan. I actually really want to now regrind a Reed's Regret because upon checking my vault, I only have an old God roll, i.e. one without Viced Stinger. I especially want one for Supreme Wellmaker Font of Might, but again, that is just me speaking for me. Gun to my head, I'd probably say that my favorite is, drumroll please, the Taipan-4FR. All of them are extremely viable in endgame PvE, but Taipan earns multiple God rolls from me, including best ease of use and easiest endgame DPS weapon to get a God roll of. Anyway, hope the info was at least kind of enlightening. Let me know what your favorite linear fusion rifle is and why down in the comments section, and if you're going to grind for any God rolls or just go to the Enclave for the Taipan. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.